Where the bloody heck... What in God's name is it? Oh, hello. For those of you who may not know who I am British Snob. Although my friends call me Snobby. You know, before I got here, Sherlock Holmes said to me that I always have this kind of look like I've been sniffing cabbage. I don't know what in God's name where he got that from. Well, since this is UK month and I'm here to review some British comedies, of course, today I'm going to review to you a British comedy that I know you Americans might know. Pretty much half the people in the country knows. And I'm reviewing to you today is Mr. Bean. Seriously, Mr. Bean? What a bloody twit. What can you say about Mr. Bean? Actually, what can you say about Mr. Bean? I mean, you can watch him in other countries and everybody know who Mr. Bean is. He's a man who bring in physical comedy. And it was created by the great comedian and a very smart man. Rowan Atkinson is his name. Unlike other British actors who are comedians, this fellow created an unbelievable character. Now, bear with me on this one, because my impression of Mr. Bean is pretty obvious. Oh. Hello, Mr. Bean? You lucky punk. Oh. Look, Teddy. And that is... I've said how my bloody calls. Anyway, this is Mr. Bean, a full-grown man who is trapped by a kindergarten's body, if you ask me. Unlike other people, he doesn't, he always been so selfish and hardly romantic. If you ask me, I'd rather ask his date out and tell her ditch this human child and deal with a real Brit man. Anyway, there are tons of things you should know about Mr. Bean. That, like on the Christmas special, he plays on the set. I mean, there was this kid, it's supposed to be about the birth of Christ. And what he does, he's like a little child who don't understand. He brings in other toys around and play about until one of the British men brings out the toy of one of the bobbies and say, And of course, do not forget the most famous comedy part on Christmas, where he shoves his head inside of a turkey and goes... Sorry, try not to laugh. Anyway, and of course, one thing that everybody remembers, besides Mr. Bean, is his teddy bear that he calls Teddy. He always goes to bed with it. He always carry him around with him. I mean, he goes into a lot of mischief and flim-flams around here. There's not much you can say about Mr. Bean, that he's not like any other normal man. He always keeps finding ways of doing things and kind of get himself in trouble and that kind of stuff. So, that's Mr. Bean for you. And also, one thing you should know, that Mr. Bean got so bloody popular that they decided to make a movie for America called Bean. Not to be confused with Mr. Bean, but simply Bean. Rowan Atkinson himself shows up, he goes to America, and he's supposed to make a speech about the painting of Whistler's mother, one of the finest arts ever made. But why they have Burt Reynolds playing one of the descendants of the Whistler's family, I never know. It's like everything we never know. Like Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Nobody knows what in God's name is he doing there in the first place. But of course, as usual, Mr. Bean always gets in trouble, and he always destroys something, but he always has ways to fix it. And do not forget his car. Oh yeah, and do not forget the time when he was going out in public swimming pool, and when he jumped into the high board, he lost his trousers. That is embarrassing. And of course they made another movie called Mr. Bean's Holiday. I haven't seen it, but one of these days I will see it. And also, do not forget one time he accidentally mixed his pants with somebody else's trousers. So he has to find a guy who wore his trousers and just force the pants off his legs and toss in his pants. And one thing about Mr. Bean, you know those electronic device orb where you put your hand in, makes your hair stick up funny? Well, to Mr. Bean, his hand didn't stick up. His hand didn't all stand up at all. But what really happened, he started bringing a lot of static. Everything starts sticking to him. Any metal or any pieces of paper or magazines. And of course, he's too much of a child that he was trying to do some artwork on a bucket of fruit, and suddenly a naked woman was there. And he's too shy, he always keeps hiding his face. So what he does, he brung in a bunch of clay, and he covered up the lady. Well, there is a fine line difference between art and, well, something that Playboy has. Well, you should say porno. Or nasties. That's what we call nasties in Britain. You know, there's one thing I do have a problem in Britain, you know? Some of the other people who don't like me, they always call me a wanker. I don't know what the bloody heck that means. I said it's snob. My friends call me snobby. Anyway, those of you who have YouTube, or any kind of, I mean, you can go to your local video store, well, actually Best Buy to be precise, or any stores that sells DVDs or Blu-ray, get yourself Mr. Bean. And of course, another thing is pretty much surprising to me, that Mr. Bean struck again, and you can find that on YouTube as well. They made Mr. Bean anime series, where now Rowan Atkinson, aka Mr. Bean, is going through the same riffraff. Well, and that is Mr. Bean. So, bye-bye. Oh, well. Oh.
Oh, you feel lucky, punk. Oh. Magic.
And that is Mr. Bean for you. So do not miss the TV series of Mr. Bean, or the animated series, or the movies. So for those of you Americans who like my review of Mr. Bean, please leave a comment down below, hit like, subscribe. As for me, there is more for this UK month. I'll be reviewing some more British comedies for you folks, so stay tuned. So bye-bye.